call with us today. And if you don't know Anna, you are in for such a treat this morning. So, Anna has done so many roles within our company. She's been an agent. She started as an assistant team leader. She's been a team leader. She's been a regional director of multiple regions. She is just a business builder. She's a teacher and instructor and a mama of two gorgeous little girls. She does all of the things. She's wife to Press McKissack, daughter-in-law to Linda and Jimmy McKissack. So if you're wondering, is that the same McKissack family? It is. And so I'm just so thrilled to hear from Anna. And I think this topic is so beautiful for you because I see you as such a joyful leader. And so, girl, the floor is all yours. I'm going to turn it over to you. I appreciate you being on with us today.
This is awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This is so cool. I love that y'all do this. And I tell my kids all the time. She gave all of the titles, but we all know the absolute most important one is parent and wife. And I tell my kids all the time, your brain hears what your mouth says. And we're in the middle of gorgeous Montana right now. Here, I'll show you looking outside. So we were out on the boat. This is kind of the meeting ground of both sides of our family. And we were out on the boat with some friends. And one of the people that was on the boat was about to start surfing. And they're like, man, I'm not very good at this. I'm not going to last very long. And both my kids yell at this grown adult, your brain hears what your mouth says. So I love that y'all do these affirmations, and I'm actually going to talk a little bit about affirmations today. So for some reason, the Lord had me pick up the book. It's Hal Elrod's book, Miracle Equation. And it was the weirdest thing. You know, the Lord sometimes I'm a person of faith, and there are things that just happen. You're like, what are the chances that happen? Because I couldn't have made this up if I tried. And a couple of weeks ago, the Lord had me pick up Hal Elrod's book, The Miracle Equation, which a lot of y'all have heard of his books of the Miracle Morning. And he has several different versions of it for entrepreneurs, for business owners, for real estate agents. And he has another one for over 55 as well. However, he wrote, I think it was around 2019, the book, The Miracle Equation. And it's all around the premise of extraordinary effort plus unwavering faith gives you miracles. And I kid you not, I finished the book, and 2 days later I was thinking, as I was reading the book, I thought, man, I've got to go a couple of questions. I wonder if there's a way that I could reach out to him and ask him a couple of questions. And I was sitting at a regional meeting at Keller Williams International, and I look over at the side of the room, and somebody's being escorted in the room, and my jaw about hit the floor. It was Hal Elrod. And I got to go ask him a couple of these questions, and I think this fits perfectly. Now, less than a week later, Teresa is asking me to come on and talk about this topic. So apparently this is a very important topic that we need to talk about right now. However, the three main things that I'm hearing realtors, and I work with over 5,000 realtors right now between Ohio Valley region and Oklahoma region, and almost 6,000 realtors. And the main things that I'm hearing from people is they are searching for peace, energy, and progress. And I think that comes a lot back to the joyful part of the affirmation that you have right now. And peace comes from action. So if you're feeling unrest, there is nothing worse than sitting there and not being able to do anything. You know, when you have a friend that's going through something and you can't do anything to fix it for them and it's just painful, but the best thing that you can do is sit there and be supportive. But the same thing is true in business and in life. When you have situations, life that happens, which happens to everybody, with life that happens and you're feeling that unrest, the way that you get out of that unrest is by taking one step, action forward, doing something. Even if you're not sure, is this the right next step? Don't overanalyze it. Take a step forward. And I'll tell you a little story about this in a little bit. The second is energy, and that comes from the training room, period. So when you're feeling disconnected, the training room is the place. And I'll tell you why. Think about it this way. When you're kind of bored and then you have a new idea and you think, oh, that's exciting. It's something new. It's something challenging. It's something that you feel like is going to bring you solutions and one step forward. You get energy. Well, do you typically have a bunch of good ideas when you're not engaged in getting your brain working in the training room and thinking about new things, or when you're not with other people? If you are feeling disconnected, if you are feeling like you're a little bit, maybe your energy is just kind of blah, which I've heard that from so many different realtors lately, the training room, even if you don't feel like it, the training room is the place to go. It brings energy, it brings community. And quite frankly, I'm not super worried about y'all if you're on this call. I'm worried about your friends who are not on this call. So, one thing that my mother in law, Linda, taught me is when you love people, you never show up to a training alone, ever. So anytime you go to a training, you text a couple of friends and you say, who wants to drive with me? Who wants to come with me? Who wants to meet me there? Who wants to sit together? But you never go to a training alone if you truly, deeply love people. The third is progress. So this comes from effort. So sometimes before you even know what the desired outcome is, and and we talked about this a little bit earlier, and I want to tell you a little story about this. So a few years ago, I went through kind of a blah phase. Honestly, it was last year and the 2 years before that, which a lot of realtors go through that, especially right now when the industry is down and it's been down for a couple of years in a row. And you kind of start wondering, is this going to be the rest of my life? Is this worth it? And you start asking a whole lot of not great questions. But I went through a blah phase where my day varied every day, but it kind of felt like I was just going through the motions of the same loop of the same week, and it wasn't really going anywhere. And I didn't know how to set my goals without wanting more for just more's sake. So, every year I would set my goals, and it got to the point probably within the last year, not this year, to where I didn't even set goals. I had my goals from 2 years ago, and I was just so blah that I had zero inspiration. And I was really tired of feeling bored and repetitive. So I opened the One Thing book, and inside of the One Thing book, I think it's on, depending on the model that you have, but it's on page 188, and it has the 7 aspects of life. And I started with those topics. And I thought, I'm just going to set goals, even though I'm feeling lost. I'm just going to start setting little goals in little places. So then I started adding on some of my own topics. So I had faith and marriage and parenting and spiritual and health and mental and travel and work and flying. I'm a pilot on the side for fun, so I had goals around that. Physical, financial, wealth, and adventure. And all of a sudden, I started thinking that is a bunch of different goals, but I knew what I wanted to be for being physically fit. I knew what, I wanted to add on an extra rating for flying. I knew what I wanted to do for my mental health, my physical health, my parenting, my marriage, and I thought I can set goals for that. I just felt a little lost for some of the other stuff. And let me tell you, when I started getting into setting these goals, it's like the heavens opened. and it just started making a lot of sense. And I would have left them blank if it didn't come to me at that time. I still would have left it blank, and then I would have added on as it came to me. But what I found is there was a couple of things that clicked and made a lot of sense. And like I knew that I needed to work out 3 times a week, every week: strength training, running, and I do walking with a 40-pound weighted vest. And I knew that I needed to eat 80% full. I knew that I wanted to be in the Word 4 days a week. I knew there was certain things. I wanted to do a date night with with one kid once a month. So we would go back and forth every month, and we switch which parent goes with which kid. And all of a sudden, action breeds action. So I kind of want to bring this back to the miracle equation just to close this all out. So what does extraordinary effort means? It means you pick something to stretch you. How joyful you feel when you accomplish something that you didn't really know you thought you could, or figure out something for the first time. So extraordinary effort is when you do something just a little bit out of your reach. And being a person of faith, I feel like the Lord calls us to do things that we are not equipped to do. And John Maxwell says this. He says, so that everyone around us knows that it was not us who did it, the Lord was involved in it. And I'll tell you what, there are several times that I negotiate with the Lord and I'm like, if you could just give me something a little smaller and a little more manageable, that would be super awesome. And usually the response from the Lord is, well, then people wouldn't know that I was involved and I wouldn't be needed. So you have to do something hard and you have to stick with it all the way until the last second. And if you read his book, then he gives the example when he was a Cutco representative, they would do these things called push periods where they had to sell $20,000 worth of product in a single week. And nobody had accomplished 3 push periods in a row. So he got to the 3rd push period and it was, there were 2-week periods, but it was 10 days instead of 14 days because they had their equivalent of mega camp. And he had his affirmations and he had to go work until the last second. The day before, when it didn't look like he was going to hit his goals, he would say his affirmations that he was going to the last second, period, end of story. He was not giving up early because it looked like he wasn't going to make it. And almost every time his extraordinary effort was, when we say gradually, then suddenly, it was somebody from the past that he had talked to called in and he's like, where did that come from? And it was from previous effort. And then unwavering faith, it doesn't mean that you can't have the ups and downs and you question every life decision that you've ever made, but it means that you have faith that you could accomplish the goal. So the last thing we're going to talk about is affirmations. And this resonated with me. He said, you have faith that you could accomplish the goal. And on affirmations, he says they get a really bad rap because we pick silly affirmations that don't sound genuine to us. And so when you're saying them to yourself, you almost feel like a liar. And then your brain starts working to prove all the reasons that it's not true, if it's something that's not genuine to what you believe. So his affirmations were, I am committed to maintaining unwavering faith that I will achieve my mission and I will put it forth extraordinary effort until I do, no matter what. There is no other option. And you hear that and you think, shoot, all of that is true. None of that feels cheesy. None of that feels like you're lying to yourself. And I'll send this to Teresa so she has access to it. But also, you can ask ChatGPT or Gemini. You all have a free Gemini Plus account because you have a KW email. You can ask Gemini to give you a synopsis of the book, and you can ask it to give you his affirmations. And that's a really quick way to get some answers. Okay, so when he felt like he was losing his faith, he would repeat this to himself. And he talked about times that he would yell it. He would roll down the window of the car and he would yell it out of the car just to make him believe himself. And the reason why he would yell it is so it would be louder than his thoughts. So today, I really want to bring this back to the miracle equation. I want everybody to have peace, energy, and progress. And I want you to do it through the miracle equation, having extraordinary effort all the way to the very end, unwavering faith that you could do it. You could accomplish it. Whether it comes from you or whether you got a little bit of help from the Lord, doesn't matter. And then the last is it gives you miracles. So thank you everybody for being on. I appreciate it.